Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tia here. If you are new, like and subscribe. But for today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys why I have never invited a guy over to my house. Okay, so pretty much growing up, like my family, like mostly my mom was always like, oh, stay away from boys, don't talk to boys, blah blah blah, right? And then I was secretly doing it online on those little apps or whatever. But when it came to like in-person stuff, I wasn't even interested in dating until my early college years, because in high school, I went to like a white high school. I was like, all these guys are beneath me, like I don't think my soulmate is a white man, blah blah blah, so I'll just wait to college, blah blah blah, right? Then I get to college, I start dating, and I guess the normal routine is to start dating a little bit, and then like you go to each other's like parents' house, you introduce people to your parents, and then they can occasionally come over to your house and like hang out, watch TV, do sexual things, whatever, right? But for me, I have never invited a guy over to my house. And currently I am 26 years old. Yes, I still live at home because I ain't trying to pay these damn bills in an apartment. Okay, like who the fuck is paying $2,000 a month for rent? No. But anyways, I have like never invited a guy over since I started dating, right? So I started dating when I was like 18, I'ma say, like literally the first year of college, and the guy was younger than me. For some reason, most of the guys I talked to were younger than me, okay? So I started talking to him, blah blah blah. Turns out, he didn't have a job, he didn't have a car, he had a toxic family situation. It was a toxic relationship in general. But even in the beginning, of course, like you're madly in love with this person and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for them to meet my parents, blah blah blah, right? And then so I think for me, my thinking process is like, if I bring this guy over to my parents' house, I want him to be like the best of the best. Like he has a good this, like basically like a whole, like all the check marks, and then he's treating me right in our relationship and whatever, to the point where I'm like, I want to introduce him. So in that relationship, like I just listed, he basically had nothing going for himself, right? So I was like, why should I introduce him to my parents? And then keep in mind, I think my first boyfriend, he was also like 5'6" or whatever, hella short. And I think like my whole life, my mom was telling me that I need to marry tall so my kids can be normal sized and not midgets, okay? So that's like been my mindset, like just it's been ingrained in me that I need a tall guy or whatever, right? So I don't know, I was just too embarrassed to introduce him, right? And then it comes to the day where I want to go to his prom, because I'm in like my first year of college, but he's like in his last year of high school, right? Like because he's a year younger than me. So I wanted to go to his prom just so I can have an excuse to dress up again. But he needed my parents to sign like a permission form or like whatever, right? So then in order to go to the prom, I had to tell my parents about him, who he was, what school he went to, blah blah blah, where he lived. And I'm here like I was just annoyed because I'm like, oh great, now my parents got to meet this guy who I'm like supposed to be dating or whatever, right? So my dad was like, oh, bring him to the canned food drive, like he can come help us and we can get to know him. I'm like, okay. So we awkwardly have to go pick him up at his house because he doesn't have a car, and then we had to drive him to the food drive. And then while we were there all day, my dad is like pulling him to the side, being like, what's your intentions with my daughter? And still to this day, I never know what they talked about. It's like that father boyfriend talk that I will never know. But after that, my dad was like, okay, like you can go to prom with him, whatever. And then like that's how he met my parents. But I never brought him to my house even after that or whatever, because he still wasn't worthy in my mind, right? And then we get to my second boyfriend. Okay, my second boyfriend, he was the only guy I dated who was older than me. He's probably like 5 years older than me, so he's probably like 30 at this point. I don't even know, but he's probably like 30 now, right? But he had like everything going for himself. He had like a grown-up type job. He had a car. I don't think he went to college or anything, but he had like a decent family situation. And it was a good overall decent relationship. Like I think I only dated him for like 3 months, but I was in college, so I wasn't really like serious in that relationship. Like, I feel like I kind of led him on a little bit, and you know, he was buying me stuff occasionally because he did have the money for it, blah blah blah. And then I think like a year after that, we were kind of like off and on a little bit, you know, whatever. But it's like I still didn't feel like I should introduce him to my parents. I don't know why. Like, I guess I just get a gut feeling, right? Even though he was the only decent boyfriend that I've ever had, right? And then the next relationship I had, it was like hella toxic. The guy was like, he was like 2 years younger than me. He didn't have a car, no education, he smoked a lot, didn't have a job, just like an overall bum, right? So I'm like, why the fuck would I introduce this guy to my parents? But the thing is, he did come to my house because I would like I think it was like my first boyfriend and then this one, they did come to my house because that was before we had a Ring camera, you know, before anyone had that, right? So I literally would just have them over at my house when we were home alone. And the thing is, we wouldn't even do anything like, you know, what like normal teenagers would do. They would be doing things, okay? I didn't even do any of that with them. I literally just gave them a house tour and I was like, yeah, this is my room, blah blah blah, and like that's it. And then we left. We were only here for like 30 minutes max, okay? But like, he never met my parents, and I had to talk with him because I think he was like a little self-conscious about it, and he was like, oh, when am I gonna meet your parents? Like, how come you're always coming to my house, I'm never coming to your house, blah blah blah. Like, he definitely felt some type of way about it, and I was like, well, you know, like, there's nothing really to do at my house, blah blah blah. And that's always what I tell people, because in reality my house is boring. Like, I feel like everyone else's houses, they have like better layouts, they have like a better bedroom, it's like a more chill space. But like, I don't know, my house, I just feel like my house is boring. You know, I don't even have my female friends over here, right? So for him, that's what I would tell him. And in reality, like, when I look back on it, it's actually was because I was embarrassed of him. Like, it wasn't like, it didn't get to that toxic point yet, but like, even like just him as a person, I was just like embarrassed, you know, because I'm like, if my dad is a hardworking man, you know, he worked like to get himself where he is today, right? And then I'm bringing a bum over, and then, you know, my dad's gonna be looking at me like, what the fuck? Like, why are you dating this bum who can't do anything for you, can't provide for you, blah blah blah. And keep in mind, I'm still like 22 years old, so obviously like no one in their early 20s is gonna be like thinking about marriage or long-term stuff. Like, that's super rare for guys to think about. But yeah, I was like, I don't know, I kept like trying to reassure him, and I was like, yeah, well, technically my parents' opinion doesn't mean anything, my house is boring anyways, there's nothing to do at my house. But yeah, I feel like deep down I just was embarrassed, right? And then it goes into a toxic relationship, and then I'm thinking like, oh, thank God, like, I never brought him over to my parents, right? Because even like the first one that my dad met at the canned food drive, they were still asking about him like 3 years later. They were like, oh, what happened to that one guy you used to talk to? And I was like, bro, you know. So that's another reason why I don't like introducing them either. And I always told myself, like, deep down, I feel like I don't really care about my parents' approval. And I know like that's like a thing, how it's like, oh, your parents know best, mother knows best, blah blah blah. But I feel like, I don't know, I don't know, I feel like I'm like the ultimate last decision. So like, even when it comes to like that tradition of marriage, how your dad is supposed to hand you off to your husband, like, I feel like that's so weird to me. Like they don't own me, I'm not like an object, you know. So I've never really cared about their approval or permission or like that, like, you know, that type of thing, right? So then the last guy that I recently talked to, he basically told me that he had strict parents, and I think like his dad was in the military and all that stuff. So he was saying like, I can't come over to his house until like I actually like introduce myself and blah blah blah. And then he said I can't go upstairs to his room for like until like I'm his actual like official girlfriend or whatever, because I guess like his parents, like, if you're up there having sex, like, his parents want you to be dating or whatever. But that was the only time where I've been in this situation where the guy has had strict parents. You know, like usually the guy's parents like don't really care that much. They just let the guy have anyone over, whatever, right? Because people are more overprotective over their daughters and their sons, right? So for him, it was totally different. And I kind of like respected that a bit more because at least I know that he's not bringing like at literally anyone into his house. You know, like he can't just have anyone upstairs and like that type of thing, right? um but yeah, that situation kind of ended badly. And the thing is like I did like feel impressed by him. I was like, you know, he has a job that's similar to my dad's. He has a car. He's like tall, somewhat good looking. He has a good family relationship. You know, like there was basically like no negatives. So I was like, oh, you know, maybe I will introduce him to my parents. Like that has been the first guy that I've ever thought about introducing to my parents, right? And then literally the day before I'm about to introduce him, like after our date or whatever, he ghosted me, right? And I'm thinking there, like, is this like a sign, you know? Like this, like he clearly wasn't the guy to introduce to my parents, you know, like that still hasn't happened yet. It's still, who knows when it's gonna happen, but I feel like it was kind of like weird timing. Like I could have introduced him like any time before that because I was so sure about him, but the fact that it ended like the day before I was gonna do it, like that, it's kind of weird to me, right? But I don't know, other than that, like I don't know, I feel like I'll probably never introduce anyone until I'm like dating somebody for maybe like 6 months or even longer than that at this point, because after that previous situation where it was like, you know, it seemed perfect until it wasn't, it's like anything can happen for real. You know, like some of these guys, they tell you they're toxic and then they do something toxic and you're like, oh, okay, you know, that was expected, right? But now that I've seen the other side of it, where a guy can appear totally perfect, even introduce me to his family and all of that stuff, and then still do me wrong, that's when I'm like, okay, like I don't know. It's just weird how guys be doing things. But yeah, that was it for this video. In conclusion, I don't even know. Men be annoying me sometimes. But yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Bye.